in order to revisit everybody's favorite topic from the course so far, which is pointers, we can use pointers to structures, and in the very same way that when we were working with pointers to arrays, for example, we can use a pointer to a structure as a parameter that we pass to a function. Now, remember the idea of dereferencing for how it is that we use a pointer to a structure. So before we get there, just let's take note of, or let's just take stock of recalling that when we are using the indirection, so cin, right, we have a shortcut that we can use, and that is the hyphen greater than, or for the rest of us who were not born in the 1840s, it looks like an arrow. So let's do this. We have a student structure with a name and ID number, credit hours, and GPA. Here on line 16, you will notice that we have a getData function that is void. We don't need to return anything because we are actually going to use, as you can see there in the function prototype, we are going to use a pointer there. So we don't have to pass a copy of the structure. All we're doing is we're passing a pointer to that structure so that we don't replicate and move all this extra data around. We don't use more storage space than we need to. So here I've got my student structure, and I'm going to refer to this instance of the student structure as freshman. Here you can see is where I am getting, I hate to say this, but it's the name of the function is getData. So we are going to use getData to enter in the values of our members of our structure, but we're going to do that with a pointer. So, and freshman assures that we are able to do that because here we're not using a new pointer. We just don't have to. Now, could you do this with a null pointer? Yes, you could do that with a newly declared pointer, but for this we simply did not have to, so I didn't write it. So here we've got get student data, and again we need the asterisk, which is its third function here, because we are in fact referring to a pointer. Now here is really the big wrinkle. There are two wrinkles here to this, because we are ensuring that we are properly dereferencing the right portion of our structure. So instead of it's the student structure, so instead of dereferencing the student structure, what I really want is I want to reference the member of the student structure, and in that case on line number 40 it's name. So it's get line cin s, because that's the name of the pointer for the student structure that I passed along here. And what I'm referring to, that I'm trying to read in here, is name. So this is a reference to the member of that structure. Verbally, it's a lot, but really it's just, the name of the structure, the arrow, and then the member that I want. Boom, I have access to it. Pretty neat, right? That's one of the fantastic things about being, a developing developer now, as opposed to being a developing developer, 30 years ago, when this would have been like unbelievable, because we have so much availability of bandwidth and processing and storage. We don't have to do all the magic stuff anymore. This shorthand here is freaking magic. You'll notice here on lines number 44, 48, and 52, we have the same idea for the indirection operator, right? We have a CIN, but because we are aiming to dereference not the S object itself, but because, or the structure itself, we are aiming to dereference the ID number portion. We need that arrow operator right there. So what ends up happening in all of this void function here is that we are referring to the members of that structure, and we are doing it by leveraging C++'s availability and C++'s functionality of, being able to, okay, hold on, let me do this for you. You are giving me a pointer to a structure, and then you are going to reference a structure's member. I can do that for you. And that's essentially what that arrow does for you. So if I was to run this, we can enter a name. I can use Big Bird because I did not do what many of you are still want to do, which is use CIN. Use getLine when you're working with strings. There will be less heartache and tears there. Student ID number 123456. Credit hours enrolled, you're going to have a busy semester, 15, and current GPA, 2.5. Everybody's going to roll your eyes at the idea of a 2.5, but let me tell you, C's get degrees, and I have worked with plenty of people who have advanced degrees who couldn't think their way out of a paper bag. So a GPA is just a damn number. So here is the student data that you have entered, and you'll notice over here, back in my main, I am simply using the dot notation, freshman.name, freshman.id, freshman.credit hours, in order to get to the members of that structure. So this is a phenomenal shorthand for you when you're working with structures, when you're working with pointers, because of that modified indirection operator. It works great.